Hello, Oracles, and welcome to our Tuesday night live here with Vinny. Vinny has not been on all year long. Wow, it's been such a long time. How the heck are you, Vin?
Doing really, really good. Just moved. How about you? How you
Oh,
been?
fantastic. Things have been good. It's New Year. It's not 2022 anymore, so we've moved on from all the pain we dealt with last year. But those of us who feel it as
Tesla's
pain, and other people take it as a learning experience. Last year was a
te
lot of learning experiences for a lot of people. Um,
for
and if you
sure.
take and
Tesla's
if you take it,
year to date is a lot better this year.
yes, I mean, I cannot fathom, unless we get into something really catastrophic, I cannot fathom us dropping another 70%. Like, I just can't. I don't know. Like,
Mm,
I was watching your video before, and we're kind of on the same page, thinking worst case scenario, if it gets ugly, maybe we drop another 50%. My worst case scenario bottom is $57. There's a gap right there. So worst case scenario is at that level. So it's realistic, but still, that's not as bad as 2022. So,
yeah, I posted a couple videos. I got one more coming tomorrow. Otherwise it was gonna be like a 40-minute long video, but I was just kind of going into, what are some fair PE ratios and kind of projecting out, reasonable stock price. And I was definitely happy to see that basically where it trades right now, figure around a 30-35 PE ratio. It seems fairly valued. I mean, if they can as long as the growth continues. So yeah, like you said, I think worst case, another 50% drop would take multiple more black swan events and like a major recession. But without that, I think we're like near the bottom if we haven't already. Maybe a little bit more to go, but and it's been interesting the last few weeks. It's definitely consolidating. It's been going flat a little bit. So yeah, I mean, we'll have to see. I mean, Q4, I'm sure the earnings will be fine, and as long as the demand doesn't dry up, which I know people have been talking about, but again, I talked about in the video, like I just can't really see it happening. And as long as the demand is there, they're gonna keep selling every car that they make, and they'll do just fine.
oh yeah, yeah. And if you guys haven't watched it, I've only seen part one so far. So if you guys haven't watched it, I will put a link to it down in the description after we're done with this. But definitely check it out. So it's a great breakdown, explaining just that. What is worst case scenario PE, and honestly, I mean, even when you went over the worst case scenario, still at $140 at the end of next or at the end of this year. I mean, I'd still be happy with that. That's still growth over this year, and that's one of the things that I was discussing. Is I can't fathom us not being higher than when we started the year. So I would imagine we're going to be great. So the complete opposite of last year, or anybody who bought in the first 2 weeks of January are just sitting on a giant bag of heavy Tesla right now. Now, I still maintain that I think that anybody who bought at that price, if you hold it long enough, within the next 5 to 10 years, at the most, you will be positive on that. Now, nobody knows anything for sure, but I'm pretty sure you're going to be there. But anybody this year buying the first 2 weeks of the year, I have a feeling you're going to be green by the end of this year, if not before then. So,
Yeah, I try to be pretty conservative, like with the range. I kind of went. I figured the worst case, at least let's say for 2023, maybe Tesla, if the year is really bad, again, multiple black swan events, okay, maybe they do only grow 30%. You could kind of at that point, probably assign them about a where was my chart here? You could probably give them about, a 38 PE ratio is reasonable if they were only to grow 30%. So that would be a higher valuation than they currently sit at right now. And, again, like to me, that's my worst case. And if they were to grow 30% next year, they could still be on track to grow 50% on average if they grew 70% the next year, which is not, out of the question. So, yeah, that's another thing. What have you thought? I know that they came in a little under with looks like only 40% growth we're going to get for 2022. But
I love how we see
I
only
don't,
40%.
I know. I mean, I don't know how you feel, but to me, I was like, I don't know what the big deal is. They said 50% on average. They grew 60% the year before. So far we're on track.
Well, so one of the things that I learned, one of the very first things that I learned at my first job, I was in retail selling furniture. And the owner of the place taught me that whenever you give someone a window of a time frame or a price, let's say I'm going to deliver between 2 and 4 p.m. If you're not there at 2 o'clock, they're going to be mad at you because that's the time you said. So Tesla coming out saying an average of 50%, people are saying Tesla needs to grow at 50%, and they're not. So they're mad. That's just human nature. That's how it works. And for us who understand this, that's where we get the benefit of it. Because now we have a bunch of people who are upset driving the stock price down for an unrealistic reason. That's fine for me because we understand how it truly is. So I'm totally fine with that. But that to me is how it is. And quite honestly, I'm fine with 40%. Totally fine with it. Did you see the Pierre Ferragu tweet thread that he put out discussing just that kind of situation that we could see this year?
No.
Yeah, so he broke down, even because, Elon said that his goal is to push out as many vehicles as possible. And so Pierre's like, even if we go into a deep recession and they end up only growing, let's say at, 40% again, and margins come down a few points because they've lowered the prices, they're still going to end up making more money this year than they did last year. So they're still growing all of their numbers year over year, despite going into a deep recession. So it truly doesn't matter. And if they're still going to be growing during a recessionary year, what are they going to do when we come out of it? I mean, like you said, if they go from 30% to 70%, I mean, I can see them doing 40% this year. And actually, Omar had, where was it? We were talking with someone. It was James. James had a chart up and we were discussing what Tesla would need to do for the rest of the decade to achieve 50% on average. And it was 40% for the remainder of the decade. So, I mean, 40% for the remainder of the decade from here on out is totally fine by me too, because at 40% growth from here on out, they still hit 20 million by 2030.
Yeah, and Tesla, it's my biggest position. I'm always trying to look at the whole picture. What am I missing? Am I right? And all I find every time I kind of go deep into it is just more reasons to like the story. Because going back to Tesla, if 2023 does end up being another crap year with a big recession, well, Tesla's the best capitalized right now to handle that. The other auto companies are the ones that really are going to be in the house of pain, because you look at Legacy, they are saddled with debt and they have very small profit margins, if any, to begin with. You look at the other pure play EV makers, they are not profitable. They've been burning cash in the good times. So how is that going to work in the bad times? They better hope they don't go bankrupt. I mean, they're going to be teetering on the edge. And you look at Tesla, who can sell 1 million cars and make the same operating margin as GM, make the same bottom line as GM, who has to sell 3 million cars to make the same bottom line because Tesla's profit margins are so much higher. So everyone else, it seems to me, is at a severe disadvantage because which company's gonna get hurt in the recession? GM, Ford have to sell 5-6 million cars. Those sales might not be there. Tesla this year, again, to hit that 40-50% growth rate, would only need to sell 2 million. That's a lot easier to do, especially when you've got the most demand. And again, it's just, if it is a bad year and the demand dries up, all these other companies are going to be the ones that are in deeper trouble than Tesla is. 20 billion cash, no debt.
That's actually something I'm going to be discussing with Alexandra on Friday, is, going over the financing piece of things. Because if we get into a deep recession, a lot of the financing that, GM makes their money on is going to be all gone. We're going to end up going over to used cars, which honestly, for me, I think that's going to be good because I want to be trading in my vehicle. And if they're going to give me a lot more money for it because it's used, I'm good with that. But yeah, I mean, like, that's one of the things too. And I know I was talking with Lee, and I'm sure you followed him too. And he went through some rough times over the last couple of weeks. But I was chatting with him and, discussing how if Tesla hits a worst case scenario as he was playing it out, like, what happens to Legacy Auto? Because they're not positioned like Tesla. So if Tesla ends up in that situation, Legacy Auto's gone. Startups are gone. And Tesla would be the only one straggling out there. So even if Tesla was hanging on by their fingertips, when this all ended, they'd be the only ones left. They would be the only ones to scoop up everything.
They will
So
be a phoenix rising from the ashes. And yeah, that's the other thing that's interesting is obviously as long as these rates keep going up and staying steady where they are, you're starting to see cracks in the system. The consumer is starting to show some signs of, maybe having some issues. We had car payments that were at record highs to begin with, and I know there was a lot of talk of like that potentially being a bubble. And yeah, I mean, there's definitely. I don't think we're out of the woods yet, and it's going to be very interesting to see how this year plays out. But again, I think in the worst case, Tesla is best positioned. They will survive. I mean, that's all they need to do because, like you
yeah.
said, when we come out of this on the other side, they'll just be back to growing, 50% a year. And it's all the other companies who might not be around anymore. So then, yeah, they're going to have even more market.
Yeah. And then you have to remember anybody who takes on debt this year is paying significantly higher interest on that. So any debt that anybody takes on is just money that they're going to have to be paying off for an even longer amount of time. Tesla doesn't have to take on any debt. They've got the cash, they have no debt already, and they've got a ton of cash flow coming in. So they're not going to have this. So everybody else who has to take on debt just to get through this is going to be paying that off for even longer. Tesla's got nothing.
Right. Yeah, you're telling me I just bought a house, 6.5% interest on the
I
mortgage,
mean,
which actually came
that's
down
not
from
terrible.
the it came down a little bit. It's not terrible. Definitely look to refinance that hopefully in a year or two.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I mean the debt and again all these other companies are, especially Legacy has got a whole lot of debt
Oh
and
yeah.
probably will have to take on more and same for the pure play EV companies, and that's really gonna put them in a precarious situation.
Yeah, no kidding. Let's see here. Hey, Willie, what's going on? Harry, is there any doubt that Kathy Wood bought today? So this is something I'm going to go over with Alexandra on Friday also, because she's been tracking all of ARC's purchases. Looking at Tesla being down, underperforming the market today, down 2%, but ARC's been buying like crazy. And, them buying at this level, you have to remember, last I checked, they still have, based on Alexandra's numbers, over $200 million that they could put into Tesla to get them back to that 10% mark that they usually have Tesla at. So if that's the case, this is one of those scenarios where everybody I've spoken to, everybody I've seen who's institution, a portfolio manager, anybody who's been in the market for a long time, holding somebody else's money, they're putting their toes in right now. And this is the year where you're going to just slowly get into the water. That's it. That's the DCA that these institutions are doing, whether it's on a monthly, weekly, or quarterly basis. That's how they are playing it this year. And that's how Kathy and Ark are doing it. They're doing it on a daily basis, but it's still tiny little bits of what they have. And, that's how this year is going to go. And, if they see a sign where the Fed's going to say, we're going to pivot, I guarantee that's when they're going to start dumping heavier into it. So we just need to watch that. But right now, there's still a lot of uncertainty. Let's see. What's Jay? Jay Lizard, have there been any good customer satisfaction surveys for service and what consumers are thinking about the brand in general? I haven't seen any. Have you seen anything that Tesla's done?
Did you see that car that went off the cliff, like 60
Oh, yeah.
feet drop, and all four people survived? I think that's a pretty good customer satisfaction survey. I did also see, I think Tesla on Twitter had tweeted out, emphasizing that their safety is their number one priority. I
Yep.
think that this is all, going to play very well. Just another thing to set them apart from the competition. The Teslas are the safest vehicles on the roads, and it's all going to become very apparent if it's not already. And these are the things that, when people go to buy a car, they're comparing the specs, and it's going to lead them to Tesla. I really think so. Yeah, it was pretty crazy. This car, like, I don't know if anyone saw, it fell off like a cliff. It was like 50 or 60 feet, four
Yeah.
people in it, and they were all fine.
Yeah. It was like 250 or 300 feet. And sadly, I believe the dad actually intentionally did it. So that's the story that we're hearing about that. Yeah, but it's crazy that it happened, and they said, a good chunk of it, obviously in divine intervention helped, but the vehicle itself, was the reason, a big reason why it helped them. Let's see here. And then we saw today, in the inventory, I don't know if you saw it, but they have the Model Y standard range, basically standard range all-wheel drive with the 4680 batteries now available, and they have the Model 3 long range back in. So both of those are still over the $55,000 threshold. So Tesla's not budging on that yet, but I am anticipating prices coming down. And if the prices come down to the right level, I might just scoop one up. I don't know. I mean, I don't really want to pay 6% interest on a car right now, but I'd rather put that money in other places.
Yeah, definitely. I'm there with you. One day when it makes sense, or when I make it big from YouTube. But yeah, I mean, it's exciting time though, because there's a lot of great products in the pipe for Tesla, and unlike others, they're not the pressure's not there in the same way. Like, they can take their time with things like the Cybertruck and keep delaying it. It's not their only product. So we know these things are coming eventually. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
There's island time and then there's Tesla time. Tesla runs on Tesla time. They're always
Yes.
late, but they're still way ahead of the competition. So
Oh yeah.
that's all there is there. And in the meantime, they'll just keep selling every vehicle they make, and swallow up as much market as they can.
Oh yeah. And that's just how it goes. And then as Kim is saying here, did you hear about the Texas expansion? That just got approved, or they just submitted for that today, for the expansion on it. Obviously, we don't know what it's for yet. I don't know what parts of it are for, but expansions there. We've got hearing about ones in Berlin also. So expansions going on all over the place. It's just Tesla's doing what Tesla does. And if you're going to focus on, it's one of the things I learned about working out and pretty much achieving any goals that you're striving for. If you're only focused on the goal itself, you're not going to get there. But if you focus on the daily habits you need to do to get to that goal, you'll get there and you won't even realize it. Sometimes you're going to pass that goal and be like, holy crap, I already got to that goal and I'm way past it already. That's what Tesla's doing. They've got their head down. They're focused on their habits. They're focused on the things that they need to do to get the job done, and they're going to get there.
Yeah, that's another great point. Just goal setting.
Yeah.
With Tesla, they set these impossible goals, and then people get upset when they don't get there. But the way I look at it is, they set these impossible goals and it enables them to get further than they ever would have. Versus, Tesla wants to sell 20 million cars in 2030. Whether they get there or not remains to be seen. But here's what I can tell you. I can guarantee you it's going to get them a lot further than if they just said, we'll sell 5 million 2030, like some other companies out there, like Government Motors, setting a low bar, and they're still not going to get there.
Exactly. They're setting 2 million for 2025 and they think that's high. I'm like you kidding? Yeah. Let me see. And then, Willie, Tesla was the only car company that grew at all in 2022. So what we saw was the light vehicles, GM grew 3% versus Tesla's 40. So yeah, that's just tells you all you need to know right there. And then another great point too is when people are, when I hear anybody making excuses and say, well, Legacy Auto sells a lot more vehicles than Tesla overall, if you include ICE, and they had all the supply chain issues over the last 2 years. That's fine. But if you look at Ford and GM since 2016, they've been shrinking since then. So that's 4 years before COVID hit. They've been shrinking since then. So
they will never get back to their peaks. And because every Tesla sold is one less car that they're selling. And also you have all these other entrants into the playing field. So yeah, they will never get back to those peaks. I think like 2015, 2016, like you said.
Yeah.
It's just the numbers, just, obviously you added new players here. And so that kind of gives you an idea of where they cap out at, what their maximum, their best case scenario was. And every day, every year that goes by here that they're goofing off, it's just, they're making it even harder for themselves, because 10 years from now, on the current pace, ICE cars, the entire ICE infrastructure they have is going to be worthless. And I don't know, like at the current pace, it just doesn't seem to me, with everything that's happened. And yeah, they've made, a lot of leaps and had some help from the government and whatnot. But like, I still just don't feel like the urgency is there, that they fully accepted it. And obviously, we've kind of talked in the past, like there's a lot of reasons for them not to. But yeah, I don't see the urgency that they're saying, oh, we really want to be competitive and fully, transition to EVs.
Oh, I know. And like looking at, and for those of you who don't know, the reason why they basically peaked in 2016 was, if you look at interest rates from the housing recession until then, they were basically zero. There was really no interest rates are almost zero the whole entire time. And they started going up in 2016, which ironically was the same exact year that Warren Buffett decided to buy Apple. Wonder if that had anything to do with it. But since then, they've been coming down. So clearly, Legacy Auto has shown that in a rising interest rate environment, they cannot sell more vehicles. They're going to sell less vehicles. Then we went through COVID, supply chain issues, even less. Now we're back in a rising interest rate environment. What does that mean? They're not going to be increasing sales. So they're just stuck. And then because they're only selling, because we're now transitioning over to EVs, I heard from someone the other day, maybe it was Jay Lizard, I'm not sure. Somebody was telling me that their friend was going to buy a Bolt, and like they got the one Bolt that was available, and then they're like, oh, well, where's the next one? They're like, well, we're not going to get another shipment of them coming in for 8 more weeks. And I'm like, so GM can't even supply, what they have for customers that are out there. So if anybody out there saying that competition is coming, you're going to steal any sales from Tesla, they can't even steal their own sales. They don't even have enough EVs coming out right now to fulfill their own demand because they're producing so slow. So I don't see how they can possibly take anything from Tesla with this EV tax credit, as skewed as it is right now. They're out here, and it's going to come down to whoever's producing the most. That's Tesla. Tesla's going to produce the most. They're going to deliver the most. They're going to get the most benefit out of this IRA, as much as they don't need it.
There really is something to be said too about Tesla's brand value, which if it doesn't surpass it, it's coming pretty close to, it feels like, having this Apple-esque brand. Because another thing I've been thinking about is the iPhone came out 15 years ago, I guess, or so. 2007 maybe, somewhere around there. And what did everyone say? Oh, they're screwed. There's going to be all this competition, all these other smartphones. And yes, all these other smartphones did come out. Guess what? They were cheaper. They had better specs. And what happened? Apple still held 40-50% market share in some parts of the world. I believe globally, iPhones are like 30% of the market.
Yep.
And that's exactly what I see playing out with Tesla, because it's highly overlooked. There's so many intangibles with this company that, the numbers are great. Don't get me wrong. I mean, obviously the financials and the growth is there, but even beyond that, if we look at the qualitatives, there really is something to be said, and you can't measure it, but this is just how I see it playing out over time. I mean, if you put Tesla in a similar bucket, it would be harder, I think, to capture 30% of the global market. They don't even need that much, even if they could do 10, 20% of the global market. But you know what? At the current rate, anything is possible. And I think that brand value is going to be huge. Even when there's competition, if the, competition is like the Wish version of a Tesla and it's $20K cheaper, a lot of people are probably still going to go with the Tesla, go with that iPhone, brand.
Oh, yeah. And this one here, actually, this just brought something to my head. So Jay Lizard, that's a great point, Vinny. If there's a real estate crash, will people go for houses or EVs? Now, this is getting me thinking. I was talking about with my friend Tony the other day, when it comes to owning a Tesla, you save a lot more money, obviously, if you can plug in at home. It's very beneficial. You don't have to stop at gas stations. You don't have to stop at a supercharger. It's great. So it's not as much of a benefit for people who don't have that benefit. But if the housing market is going to crash and we're going to have more homeowners out there, most of the time these homeowners are going to be younger folks starting up a family, taking advantage of these opportunities. Those younger folks are more apt to buy EVs. They would then buy a Tesla and then be able to plug it in at home, because we're going to have that EV revolution pushing even harder. So I think the housing market crash might actually speed up EV adoption even faster.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. I mean, that's tough. I think if there's a housing market crash, people probably are not, doesn't tend to be a boom for buying, because if you owned a house, it's lost its value, and, tends to be coupled with tough times where people don't really have the money to buy houses. That could be interesting. I mean, a Tesla is definitely a lot more affordable, and you're incentivized now with this, IRA rebate. So yeah, I could see it.
Yeah, and then next year it becomes an actual rebate, so people are getting that money off. So yeah, I think this year is going to be kind of a watch it and kind of dip your toes into the water, and then I think we're going to see, as Kathy Wood says, the Roaring Twenties. I think that might start in 2024, and I think I still have 2025 as my year that we're probably going to see the next parabolic jump move in Tesla stock price, and that's when things are they're gonna really pull away at that point. We're gonna have the Cybertruck ramped, we're gonna have the semi really pushing out there. Energy is really going to be taking off. Maybe we'll have FSD solved and robotaxis coming on the road at that point. I mean, Tesla's going to be pulling away with so much stuff in 2025, where GM's going to be trying to get to 2 million vehicles sold in 1 year.
Yeah, and FSD, as they've gone to wide release now, and as the information really gets out there, I think you're going to see the take rate has to expand, right? It had a pretty low take rate thus far. I want to say last year, I mean, maybe it was at like 7% people
Yeah.
that actually bought a Tesla opted in for FSD. I think that's only going to increase when FSD is completely solved is another question. But in the meantime, for those worried about Tesla's profit margins, if they have to cut costs, they have this, trick up their sleeve that no one else can really say. That $15,000 that people will dish out for FSD is pretty close, as close to pure profit as you can get, even if they just make 50% margins off it. I mean, that's a huge advantage, and that should help offset, figure up to 15,000. If they had to go that far down in the prices and people bought the FSD, that's 15,000 that all these other companies, a revenue stream that's not really an option for them.
Yeah. And then, you have to remember too that as the year went on last year, more and more people had the availability of getting FSD beta and using it. So if that was the case where more people were getting it, even if the percentage comes down, the total number of people paying that $15,000 actually went up. So, that increases. And now that we're at wide release, we'll see version 11.3 is supposed to be coming out in 2 weeks or next year. We're not sure. But, according to Elon, it's 2 weeks. But we'll see version 11.3. That's the first time we're going to have single stack at wide release. And that could be a major jump. And I have no doubt that at some point, maybe it's this year, maybe it's next year, we're going to end up going to subscription based. And that's how it's going to be. I don't know how much the price would be, but I have a feeling that we're going to be going to subscription only, and people will not be able to buy it because like 15 grand, especially in a recession, that's a big nut to swallow. Yeah. Let's
Yeah,
see here.
for sure. I mean, but at the same time, another advantage for Tesla is, yeah, right now you could just classify them as a luxury automaker, and the buyers of luxury cars, they're not affected the same way as, people buying regular cars like Honda Civics and whatever GM is selling. So again, all of these reasons just point to me in the direction that Tesla is going to be the last one to have a demand issue. And if they do have a demand issue, everyone else is way deeper in their issues.
Yeah, that's the one thing we have to remember too. The whole time going through this year, despite the fact that everything seems to be, doing whatever they can to hold Tesla back so that others can catch up, it's not going to help. They're so far behind. They're going to be anything that somebody tries to do to hold Tesla back is going to end up holding everybody else back as well. That's just the reality of the situation. Oh, and David here correcting us. Polestar grew 80%. So yes, and Polestar. So there's a couple. So Polestar actually I think is great, and Hyundai. I think Hyundai is going to fly under the radar and be a solid company with EVs. Nobody really talks about them. They just go out there and they just do their thing. So kudos to Hyundai for doing their thing.
Yeah, and I mean, there's definitely a big enough market for all of them to get a pretty big chunk of the pie.
Yeah, and that's what it comes down to. When you've got disruptive technology, like you said, you could put out a wish type EV and it's going to sell because you're in a disruptive market. That's just how disruption works. There's room for everyone. Eventually, you hit a point where some of those companies will get weeded out. But in the beginning, anybody can go out there. That's why we saw last year, everybody was like, oh, I'm going to have an EV. I'm going to have an EV. Like, who didn't have an EV last year? FedEx is like, I'm making an EV. Everybody made an EV. McDonald's EVs were out there. So anybody who could try to make an EV was trying to make one. But eventually the reality hits that they're not profitable. They're not easy to be profitable on. Tesla's doing something that most people can't do. And literally no one can do right now. So, and actually, David, I don't know if you know, is Polestar profitable on theirs? I'm actually curious about that because they're smaller, so I don't see their numbers very often. Let's see. And then, of course, we've got Tesla doing their lithium refining, which is nuts because, it normally takes 7 years. And Tesla's like, nope, 2 years. We're going to have it up and running. Thanks. Like that's just
Yeah,
how Tesla operates.
they're
And then,
not slowing down.
no, and I thought about it too. So I was discussing the other day how the business model sort of is similar with Tesla. So obviously they're doing things their own way. They don't care about the old ways of doing things. But thinking about this year alone, if they decided to sell cars at no profit, then later on, because they had so many vehicles on the road, they can get software into their vehicles. They can get FSD. They can sell aftermarket stuff to their customers to make their cars better and get high profit and high margin items added on afterwards. Whereas Legacy Auto does that with parts and service right now. But if Tesla is doing their own software to get the profit on it, and Legacy is going to outsource all of that, how is Legacy going to make their vehicles profitable? How are they going to make large margins and make up for the parts and service later on? I mean, they still have the ICE vehicles. Obviously, they're going to have ICE for at least another 10 years that they can work on, but that business is clearly going to be dwindling over the next decade.
And this is the first time in history that a company will have that, and just the ability to flip a switch and get 15,000 in profit just like that from FSD on a product that they potentially could have sold 10 years ago. I mean, it's going to get pretty bonkers. What we'll see with that, and yeah, no one else really can do that yet.
Yeah, and looking at, and I can't remember who I was talking to, wondering how much FSD deferred revenue they're going to recognize this quarter, because now that they've gone wide release, they realistically, I think it was $1 billion we were discussing about how they can do that, and that's literally $1 billion on the bottom line. That is straight to the bottom line, $1 billion. So if anybody's concerned about, them dropping all their prices and taking vehicle margin hits, don't forget, it's not the vehicle margin dollars that are paying the bills. It's the operating margin dollars that are paying the bills. So even if they're not making as much money on their vehicles, if they're making up for that in other areas, whether it's going to be insurance, FSD, software, or just cutting costs across the board, that is what we want to pay attention to. So if we're looking at growth year over year, where is the EPS growth? That's the big number to pay attention to. Because if they only grew 40%, only 40% in deliveries, but they're growing 50% in EPS, that's the banger right there. That is where you'll see an epic Q4. FSD is sick. I never drive without it on anymore. So we tested it, and because my friend Tony, I only go and see them like every 6 months or so. And the last time we went, and we usually take the same route every time, and it's good for me because it's been a long time since I can see it. And then seeing the changes, and there's a roundabout that they just put in town. So we go around the roundabout. The first time he went through it, he had to disengage and he had to intervene and do the whole thing himself. The second time we went through it, which was a few months later, it was able to do it on its own. This time around that we went last time, there was actually traffic on it. It was, a little more, it hesitated going into there. It didn't see a car coming, so we had to intervene because that would have been a problem. But as we went around, it figured it out. We actually circled back and did it a second time, did it flawlessly the second time. So it's learning, and it's learning very quickly. And then taking just normal turns. God, the last time it was like driving in a car with a 12-year-old, and now it was taking turns exactly how I would have taken them. So definitely major progress on FSD, at least from my perspective, from the experiences I have had. I don't know if you've had a chance to enjoy any FSD drives anywhere, Vin.
I've gone a couple test drives and with some friends that have them, yeah, and it's incredible, and it's just getting better. That's the key, is that it's improving, and that's all I really need to see. It's definitely constantly improving, and by big magnitudes.
Yeah. And then when will we know when they're using Dojo? So as far as I know, they are currently using Dojo for it. Because Dojo is going to be handling a lot of the AI and the data coming in. When I had Nick Gibbs on here, we were discussing how it's not so much about the data that comes in, it's how you can process that data. And that's what Dojo is being used for. And that's why, like, when people were in an uproar that Tesla's laying off, labelers for their system for FSD, that must mean it's failing. It's like, no, that means that they've got great systems in place that are auto labeling. The auto labeler is so good that they don't need all of these other people that are doing it, and they can put that money and resources elsewhere in the company. So they are using it, and I have a feeling we'll hear about some of it at Investor Day. I would love to go to Investor Day. I'm actually on vacation the week right before that. But if I wasn't, I might have gone down there. Let's see what else we got in here. And David, yeah, I don't think that they're profitable. Yeah, and Polestar, yeah, they're very small. They're just coming up, but I think they're going to be okay. Let's see what else we got in here. Oh, here's a good one. Jay Lizard, how many times do you think a consumer has to use FSD before there is no going back, where they go FSD is the same expectation as power steering? Yeah, I was actually thinking about that. If Tesla switches over to a subscription-based only version of FSD, somebody can be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to try it out this month, $200. I'll pay it, try it out for the month. It's not that great. No updates coming anytime soon. I'll let it go for the next month. Eventually, they are going to pay for that 1 month and be like, you know what? This is worth keeping. I am not going to cancel. And I think that's how we're going to see the subscription model going, is we'll start seeing numbers where it comes down to how many people have subscribed and then canceled. And that number will end up decreasing over time because less and less people will end up canceling.
There's another demand lever they could pull. Give people a free month. Let them test it out. You're going to get some buyers.
Yeah, that was actually something that we talked about the other day too. Even if you give them, hey, here's a 7-day free subscription. How many other companies do that? Tons of them do that. So if you say, hey, every new purchase, you've got your new vehicle. Think about what they did with OnStar. You buy a vehicle with OnStar, you've got 30 days of free OnStar. And then if you want to pay for more after that, great. So anybody who buys a Tesla for the first time, hey, here's your Tesla. You've got 30 days of FSD. Great. If you enjoy it, awesome. You can keep it. If not, you can cancel it. I think that'd be a great way to go for Tesla with FSD, especially once they get further into it. Oh, let me see here. Yeah, as Willie's saying, pay attention to the legacy auto's huge debt. They also have to pay more interest rates. That's exactly it. Looking at the amount of debt that legacy auto is in, and the fact that GM couldn't even pay off their government loans, they're going to be in a world of hurt. Oh yeah, so the Gigapress. Did you hear? You hear about the Gigapress that's going over to Asia from Idra?
No, what's
So Idra posted on their LinkedIn page that they are sending another 9,000-ton Gigapress over to Asia. They did not state who. They did not state where. Tesla has not confirmed anything. So the question is it for Tesla? And if it is, what's it for? Somebody had mentioned in my comments that, it's not painted the colors for Tesla, so maybe it's not. But I don't know how that piece of it all works. I don't know who else over there would take it. Is it for BYD or NIO, XPeng, one of the other manufacturers? Not sure. And I'm not as familiar with the Gigapress and how it operates. But from what I heard from somebody is a 9,000 ton, I don't know if it can do a single casting, at least not for the Cybertruck. So I don't know if it could do it for a smaller vehicle. That would be a great question. And then doing 2 cars at once, I truly don't know that much of it. I may have to find somebody who knows more about how the Gigapresses work to see if that's something feasible. From what I've heard, it is not, but it would be interesting if they could.
Yeah, or maybe for the compact car.
Yeah, and then one thing to remember too is we were having a discussion about where are they going to put it in Shanghai? The factory's full. Where can you put it? We know that they've got an expansion supposedly coming. We don't know if it's even started yet. Doesn't seem like it is, but nobody's really sure. And, then you realize that the Gigapress actually removes hundreds of robots. It takes the place of them. So they can realistically get rid of, tons of robots and probably have room for the Gigapress there to replace all the robots. Truly don't know. I have a feeling we're going to find out by the time we get to Investor Day. Might even find out at Q4 earnings. But that's very interesting that's going over there. And I don't think it's for the Cybertruck. Do you think we're going to be seeing that Cybertruck? I know Idra's got it. They're putting up their Gigapress in Austin now. So I would imagine they're on schedule for a July delivery for it.
Yeah, I mean, so they said second half 2023, right?
Yeah.
So on Tesla time, that's optimistic. Maybe maybe by Q4, maybe early 2024. But I think we're close. We're getting very close.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm super excited about that. I mean, considering I'm waiting for my Model Y, I'd love to get now the 4680 Model Ys. That might be my first choice right now. I'll sacrifice the range because it sounds like it's software locked range. So I wonder if they're gonna have the 4680, and then if you want to upgrade, you could pay, and then you get the software unlocked to have higher range, and I would totally be on board with that. But if they decide that they're gonna put out the Cybertruck earlier, maybe I'll just say, I'll get that instead.
Once you get a few of those Cybertrucks out on the road, it's going to be game over. That is
Oh yeah.
just going to be a free advertisement, turning heads everywhere. I mean,
Oh, no kidding. I mean, that's going to be, yeah, that seeing one of those in the wild for the first time is going to be bonkers. Oh yeah. And here's this people saying Gigapress won't fit in Shanghai. The factory is the size of a small city.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure
And
they could figure it out.
I haven't seen the inside, but knowing that the layout of Berlin and Austin is way more efficient than Shanghai, but Shanghai is producing way more efficiently than anybody else, they'll figure it out. They'll make it happen. Maybe CCP bought it. I don't know for what. I'm not sure. I don't even want to dive into that rabbit hole. Yeah, and as Willie says, wondering who the other customers could be. I would imagine Tesla's got them locked up for a long time. And we know that last year, Tesla had discussed looking at another place that could do gigapresses also. We don't know exactly why. I don't know if it was as a backup or because Idra just couldn't produce them as fast as Tesla wanted, and they're looking for somebody else. But I would imagine coming to gigapresses, Tesla's got, yeah, like I said, locked up for the next 5 years just for them. Let's see. Yeah, and as Karav says, that it doesn't make sense to put the Cybertruck there because the Chinese pickup market is small. I think it's 500,000 a year over there, so
that'll be in Texas for sure. China, if anything, if they're adding a new model there, it's the compact car.
Right. And then if we see one anywhere, it's going to be the other version of it, the smaller version that we've seen a prototype of for the Cybertruck. And whether that goes over to Shanghai or Berlin or wherever, yeah. And then David here, do you remember the patent application from Tesla about the press, which produces a full car? In the image, the car looked indeed like a hatchback. I do not remember that. That would make sense for that. So I don't know if that would be a 9,000 ton, if that would cover it. That would be awesome. And for you guys too, pay attention to patent applications. There's a lot of crazy patent applications that Tesla puts out there. We've seen some crazy ones that get approved. There's one that was for laser cleaning of glass, and people are like, sometimes you overlook them. You're like, yeah, so whatever. Think about the purposes you can have that for. One, we saw the massive windshield wiper on the Cybertruck. Maybe they're going to end up having that technology for the windshield. My first initial thought is actually going to be for cameras, because obviously going with FSD, you don't want that lens to get blocked. You need it to be cleaned at all times. So if they have laser technology to keep those camera lenses clean for FSD, that would be key. And I have a feeling something like that might come into hardware 4. Oh, yeah, Berlin is a red tape nightmare. Sure is. I'm interested to see how this expansion is going to go for them. By the time they get the expansion done in Berlin, they're going to have 3 new factories up. Could Gigapress produce low-cost military type equipment? Don't see why not. Obviously, that would not be for Teslas. Yes, I want a cyber mystery machine. I do too. I want that cyber van so bad. I'm so excited when that comes out. Oh, here we go. Karav. I saw a 12,000 ton whole body casting from Tesla for a Gen 3 vehicle. Where did you see that? On Twitter? No way. I mean, that would make sense. Totally makes sense. And that would probably be it. So a 9,000 ton, I don't know, but a 12,000 ton, When we see a 12,000 ton, we know it's coming. I'm curious as to what the Gen 3 platform is going to be. What do you think it's going to be, Vin?
I mean, definitely, I would say the cheaper car, maybe smaller, or like they're saying, kind of using the same process or same cost and produce two cars for every one Model 3 that they do now. But I don't know. I can really see the Model 3 just becoming the cheaper car. It's just a matter of if they need a smaller car,
Yeah.
just for maybe places like Europe and China. What do you think?
Well, I mean, think about it now. And Omar had tweeted it the other day, and Elon's like, people don't understand. There's a $33,000 Tesla for sale in China right now. Like everybody's like
Yeah,
screaming that Tesla needs a $30,000 vehicle. There is one. They have one.
yeah,
So it's there. And people like it's people, a lot of people are missing the fact that that exists. So I don't know if people are thinking that it needs to be a different body style. I do still think that they do need a smaller form factor in it. They need a hatchback that would be ideal for Europe, especially. And we know that that's coming. But when it comes to just the price point itself, they're already there. The US does need to come down as well. And then if they do produce one for even less, that means that that $25,000 car that we spoke about previously, which turned into the $30,000 car because of inflation, could be a $25,000 car again.
yeah. And when you factor in all the savings from not having to deal with the gas system, it's already there. I mean, that's 6,000. Take off another 6,000 on all your gas and maintenance, and the $33,000 car is 27. Then you tack on full self driving and autopilot that nobody else has.
Yeah, and don't forget, once we hit 2024, it's a $7,500 rebate here in the US. So if you've got a compact car that you're selling for $35,000, after the rebate, it's $27,000. So there's your sub $30,000 car right there. And then Karav, yeah, compact coming in 2025. I think it's coming in 2024. My thoughts on it are going to be that when they announce it, whether it's 2024 or 25, it's going to be, hey, by the way, the car is now for sale. Because as we saw over in China, if Tesla's like, hey, we've got this car coming out in 4 months, people aren't buying cars for 4 months because they're like, well, I can save $15,000 if I wait for that one. I want a Tesla. I'm going to wait. So I think they're going to announce it and it's going to come out real fast. Let me see. Yeah, the Roadster. I don't know. We haven't even heard about that. I'm sure they're going to announce that at Investor Day, I would think, but that's been totally off the radar lately. Yeah, they've got so many other things to work on. All right, that's all the questions here. Is there anything else we want to go over, Vin? I know. Again, if you guys haven't checked out Vin's videos, he's got a 3-part series that he's putting out right now discussing the stock price itself, PE ratios, valuation on the company. So definitely check those out.
Yeah. Dropped one yesterday, one today, one tomorrow. It's like the Twitter files. Check them out on my channel, and I'll post them on Twitter too.
Yes. Yeah, check those out. Otherwise, we will get off of here now. Thank you guys all so much for joining us. This has been awesome. I'm going to start doing 2 live streams a week. So I'm going to do Tuesdays, maybe myself, maybe bring a guest on. And then Fridays, I'll do another one as well. Loved the open forum one. Vin, you're always welcome to join us on the open forum. Anybody's invited. Loved that with, we had Mark and John J. Lizard on here the other night. That was phenomenal. Love talking to you guys in the community because here in the chat, it's great, but having you guys actually to converse like this, so much better. So if any of you guys are interested, always throw me a comment in the description or throw me comments in the bottom and I'll get you guys links to all that. And if you guys are on Twitter too, I'll follow you there. Otherwise, we will see all of you guys later. Thank you.